Okay. Are you rolling on that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, rolling.
I'm very, very excited for this one. You have no idea. I've been wanting to ask you questions for the longest.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, British politics in the 2020s will definitely be a defining moment in British history for either burning or building Britain. Some people believe that this country needs reform. Other believes that this country needs something radical. The man sitting across from me today is somebody that, if you could even Google the term radical, his face would be the first thing to come up. Nick TENCONI, how are you doing today?
I'm incredibly well. Thank you so much for having me here.
And welcome to the first ever episode of Classic Conversations.
Bougie, are you ready? 3, 2, 1.
Controversy and content. Welcome to Perazim's Classic Conversations hosted by Based and Bougie. So you are known for being someone that is radical. Would you describe yourself as radical?
So in terms of policies and being a Christian conservative, absolutely. There is only one future for Britain, and that is to save Britain, restore Britain to its former magnificence and glory and pride, and to deliver justice back to the British people. Now, in the same breath, the populace complains, especially on the right, and rightly so, of just how much of a situation we are in. The only thing necessary now is radical. There is no appeasement. There is no middle ground. It absolutely has to be radical in order to deliver justice, in order to save Britain. Would I consider myself to be a radical person? I've never thought about it. I suppose I can be very dedicated. I can be incredibly disciplined, and I can be a bit like a Rottweiler when I get my teeth into something. But in terms of policy, absolutely, and it's what's required.
Yeah. And would you describe yourself as a nationalist?
Certainly. So I'm a nationalist, and a lot of people on the right, both now and historically, would describe themselves as nationalists. Of course, I am a Christian nationalist. Now, nationalism has formed the basis for an awful lot of conflict and bloodshed with our European brothers and sisters over many centuries, over many wars, when in reality we were indeed united in Christ. That is a wrong which needs to be written. We need to right that wrong. So I am a nationalist, but I am a Christian and a servant of God before anything else. So our nationalism is a Christian nationalism. It is Christianity that built the West. It is Christianity that built Britain. Culture and faith are one and the same thing. Therefore, in order to get our country back, we are going to have to go back to our roots. So we insert Christian nationalism a tier higher above nationalism. You also have different types of nationalism. So, for example, books will have been written on this. I identify a ethno-nationalism or an ethno-nationalist. This is someone who puts skin color above nationalism, above everything else. Then you've got your atheist nationalism. So your basic nationalist who is not a believer in God, for example, which you could argue is the majority of nationalists. Then you have your Christian nationalism, and that is where we must travel back to, and that is what will save Britain.
Yeah. Why do you think the term nationalism has been demonized so much? Because if you think about it, if you had a home, you wouldn't invite anyone into your home. You wouldn't let anything run into your home. Your home will come first. Your family will come first. But for some reason, Great Britain has become this country that anyone can take the piss out of. And when someone like yourself comes out and says, I'm a nationalist, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the, reincarnation of Hitler. So why do you think that term is so demonized?
So certainly. So let's look at, in society, let's look at what's demonized, diluted, denigrated, demoralized. The patriarch, masculinity, Christianity, nationalism. So there is an agenda to weaken the mind and the will of the man who is both God-fearing, who is both nationalist, believes in the patriarch, believes in the importance of masculinity alongside femininity. And this is taught in our schools from 3 and up. It's taught to our young adults on our university campuses in the indoctrination camps.
Yeah.
It's taught via economic social governance in corporate, predicated on the notion of silencing and censorship. So it's not just coming for you and calling you names if you declare yourself to be a nationalist, but it's also the silencing, cancel culture, censoring that comes with it. So what I say to people when I'm training up activists, directly to your most important question, when I talk about in general and with activists when we're doing training and developing, someone calls you a Nazi, you say, it doesn't make me a Nazi to not want my family to be murdered and
Exactly.
you've got to be able to overcome objections. You have to be able to know your rebuttals. So we know that the left, the modern day left, are unhinged. They say that they call you a racist. So it's not racist to not want my family to be murdered and raped. They call you a bigot. They say it's not bigoted to want control over your borders and to not allow criminals and those who have murderous ill intent on our Christian brothers and sisters and ordinary hardworking folk. This is not racist. This is not bigoted. And this is not far-right ideology or what you'd call neo-Nazism, for example. And somewhere along the line, to your point about being called a nationalist, somewhere along the line, men, women, young adults, families have forgotten how to deal with the bully in the school playground. Now, at that time, as children, someone's going to end up getting hit. And then you're both in the head teacher's office. One of you's got a black eye or both of you. Then you shake hands and you move on. In adult life, with regards to the social pact, we obviously don't believe in violence. But we do believe in self-defense, both as ordinary, hardworking, normal, law-abiding people and as Christians in terms of Christian justice. We do believe in self-defense. Patriots, when they are called names as a result of being patriotic or nationalistic, as you say, must learn what self-defense looks like when vitriol and ad hominem attacks are used by the left, predominantly by far-left totalitarian propaganda, which is designed to put you on the back foot, a boxing term, to put you on the ropes, to confuse you, to quicken your heart rate, to stop your breathing from being continual so that you panic. That is called leaving the back foot and emerging on the front foot. And then we see the step change. And then we start to see all different changes flourishing and fruit in society. People being more aggressive in their approach, people being more domineering in their approach, because they've understood the language and the narration and the rhetoric that is required in direct response to your question about what happens when you're called a nationalist. In direct response, it's so important we're able to push back, because it won't stop our opponents. It won't stop our enemies. These people don't care about reason or logic, but it will re-empower us. It will release the endorphins and everything else that's required when you good cop, bad cop it. When you learn things, you think that you've overcome, that you've succeeded, that you've learned. And that contributes to motivation, to inspiration, morale, because you've won the argument. And we are so downtrodden, so anxious, so depressed, so destitute, we'd rather not get involved, full stop. It's easier to embrace cowardice than to face their attacks. You also mentioned about being nationalism being denigrated, demoralized. We all know this is the overall agenda, deliberately designed to emasculate us, to shut us up and to silence us. Why? Well, obviously, communist-inspired globalist agenda, supranational tyranny, stop good men from rising up. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Pick dealer's choice. Pick one.
I love that you mentioned the term self-defense, because I feel like the left, they like to use these terms, Islamophobia, racism, to kind of scare you off. And obviously, I'm 25. I've been raised in a school where you can't say hurty words. That's bullying. That's rude. So people decide to back off. But I do have one question. Do you ever fear your life? Because you are someone that the left absolutely hates. You're someone that they would want to annihilate and get rid of because you're a problem to them. Do you ever not fear your way of self-defending yourself?
No, so certainly not. There are so many things in life that I fear. when they, if it is to be an enemy, if it is to be an opponent that comes for me, when they do, this I do not fear. This would be a great privilege and a great joy if I'm to be martyred for my beliefs. Naturally, as Christians, we believe in sainthood, so that would be fantastic. Also, the chance to deploy self-defense, bearing in mind these vultures and how they behave, the ability to deploy that self-defense would indeed be truly wonderful, because I've been on the front line, and this isn't going to end for some years to come, God willing. And I've seen how they behave. You can't reason with these people. You can't reason with psychopaths. So no, I don't fear it. If they're dumb enough to try anything, then that would be glorious and magnificent, because as Christians, we believe in self-defense. I do believe I have the armor of God and the shield of faith. I'm also surrounded by incredibly good people who are always looking after me and my well-being, which I'm so very blessed to be involved with, the wider team. Going back to your point about hurty words and about far left rhetoric and Islamophobia, there is no such word as Islamophobia. There is no such word. There is no irrational fear of Islam. A phobia by definition is irrational. So you see how clever the far left totalitarian propaganda is. It's not Islamophobic to not want your children and the most vulnerable within society to be murdered, tortured, seen as dhimmi status, seen as kuffar, seen as cattle. It's not Islamophobic to want to protect your sovereign borders from the spread of the caliphate in Britain. It's not Islamophobic to not want the great replacement theory to happen with militant jihadis that we've mass imported, which no one voted for, into the United Kingdom. You see where I'm going with this? Yeah. And most importantly, Islamophobia is not a word. It's not a word. So there's the self-defense element again, where we must train activists and patriots and good hard-working people who have lost hope and faith in the face of totalitarian propaganda. There's your rebuttal to when you're called Islamophobic. It's not a word. Now, of course, if they persist that line and say that it is, then obviously you have to have the stages and the knowledge to unpack it further. You just push straight back. It's not a word. Grow up.
You strike me as a very strong person. So what does Nick TENCONI actually fear?
Snakes.
Snakes. You fear snakes.
I really, really don't like snakes.
You don't like it at all.
You know, the reptile cages in the zoos.
Yeah.
You know, when you walk in.
Oh, I thought you meant snakes, as in people who stab you in the back.
No, snakes with the tongue thing.
Oh, really?
You know, the snakes. Oh, yeah. I'm not a fan.
I mean, the snake is the reason for all the sin in the world, so maybe that's why.
There's a reason why my back, and that's been from day one. Really? I really don't see the point in them, and I just. Really? I'm not. I have a phobia. Correct use of the word phobia. I have a phobia of snakes. In terms of frightened, certainly all I feel is fear.
Oh, really?
All I feel is fear, and that's been for a very, very long. In terms of the way that I'm hardwired and my nature-nurture dynamic in my experience thus far, all I feel is fear. And at one point, I decided that I would control the fear. But at one point, I acknowledged and recognised that fear is omnipresent and that it wasn't going anywhere ever. So either I committed to a life of fear and feeling it and acknowledging that it's omnipresent and indeed embracing it to the point where it is my best friend. I also refer to fear as the darkness as well. This becomes your best friend. You also, you can't have courage and bravery without fear. By definition, you must overcome the fear.
Yeah.
We must have fear. Philosophically, we must have fear, but relative to me, it was all I felt, which is probably true for most people, some more than others. I was definitely in that camp. So I decided I would train myself to not only accept it, feel it, but need it, require it, admire it, love it, become my best friend, control it. Because without having gone through that process, you will not be able to deploy what I am planning to deploy and do on the front line for Britain.
Yeah. I just realised I haven't wished you a congratulations. You are now the official UKIP leader. So there's a lot of problems going on here in the UK, migration, grooming, liberalism. What would you say is the main issue that is leading to the destruction of Great Britain?
So you've asked the right question. The destruction of Great Britain is liberalism and godlessness.
Okay, yeah.
Now, of course, I know that you know your stuff, so you could have phrased that question in so many other ways. The destruction of Britain is to do with liberalism and godlessness. Godlessness breeds liberalism. Liberalism breeds godlessness, breeds apathy, indifference, materialistic atheism, degeneracy, debauchery, no belief in God, no belief in the soul, no belief in consequences. When we are judged at the hour of our death, means you will turn your head to what you can worship. Humans, by definition, inertia, will end up worshipping something. Now we see and now we understand the demonic cult of the modern day left. LGBTQIA+, DEI, woke, critical race theory, BLM, pick Marxism in our schools, young men trying to become women, perverts, deviants, women trying to become men, the masculinization of women, which is a power grab as a result of fourth wave feminism, utterly awful. Men wanted to become women, which is not to do with feminism, but to do with deviance and degeneracy and perversion. Very important to understand the difference there. If you'd said to me, separate question, what about the clear and present danger to our children and our elderly and vulnerable and women within society? Well, yeah, radical Islam. Islamism, to the most vulnerable within society. So there's a clear and present danger now as we speak, and then there's a clear and present danger slightly further away, and then but overall, liberalism and godlessness, because every one of us is going to have to become a political activist. If we want to take our country back, we're going to have to, in the first past the post system, you have to return a majority. That means you have to be registered to vote. That means you have to be out campaigning. As we centre everything around the candidate, then that candidate needs to win, and you have to instill them into Westminster, and you need to return a majority. But there's 40% that aren't registered to vote, that don't vote. This is problematic. So the liberalism is my answer, but liberalism, godlessness, apathy, indifference, we'll leave it to the state, boomer conservatism, Thatcherite economics, I'm all right, Jack, materialistic atheism has ensured our downfall in terms of mindset, attitudes and values, and indeed behaviours. Yeah.
In terms of godlessness, there's this term called tolerance. What's your opinion on that term? Because on the one hand, as a Christian, we are called to love thy neighbour. But on the other hand, I feel like tolerance is the reason why this country is falling apart. So how would you define tolerance? And where are we going wrong with this term in Great Britain?
Sure. So tolerance is a Christian virtue. It is a Christian teaching. Naturally, love thy neighbour love and tolerance go hand in hand. We, however, were not taught to be tolerant of evil. We were not taught to be tolerant of Satan. We were not taught to be tolerant of injustice. We were not taught to be tolerant of that which is cruel and unfair and wrong.
We was taught to fight these things.
We were taught, indeed, the opposite. We were taught to fight and to defend these things. So, Isaiah 1:17, confront, correct oppression and seek justice.
Wow, sorry to stop you there, but we just heard a politician say a Bible verse. I haven't heard a politician say a Bible verse in my lifetime, and I'm 25, so I'm grateful to hear this. Sorry, continue.
No, Deo gratias. My pleasure. And this is exactly what we mean when we say instilling Christianity back into the heart of government, of course. 100%. So, we, as Christians, we believe that justice will come with judgment when we pass. We believe that God is a God of justice. Very true. Any conversation about tolerance must be held alongside that of justice. So you ask, what do I think of tolerance? What are my thoughts? I can give you quite an extensive answer here. It must be the conversation about tolerance from the Christian worldview, but from the practical common sense world perspective, must be held with that of justice. It must go hand in hand. Otherwise, you'll end up becoming tolerant of everything. No justice, because you're tolerant of everything. Anything goes, it doesn't matter. And that pertains to some of the other points that have been made about some of the nonsense in schools, life decisions and choices by certain people nowadays, how they've been misled, etc. So our God is a God of justice. And we also note that on earth, God has enacted the role of justice to the state. Again, this is biblical. So we say prayers in Mass for those in a position, and at the consecration for those in a position of power and in a position of authority and prominence. So whoever we put in place, biblically, we are saying, carry out justice for us alongside tolerance. This is a subject that pertains to a much wider problem with regards to what so-called God-fearing Christian men and women have become when they choose, as a result of bastardizations and watering down and man-made denominations and man-made focuses, to make it their sole objective to focus on one particular verse, on one particular chapter, on one particular book.
They don't speak about the whole book on its entirety. Embarrassing.
In context, which is not only embarrassing, but it's foolish as well. So my hand remains extended to the Christian community as I recruit 650 candidates to return a majority to win our country back in 2029. My hand remains extended to Anglo-Catholic priests, to the evangelicals, to the charismatics, to the Protestants, Anglican. My hand remains extended to those people who are eligible, whereas Roman Catholic priests aren't, eligible to stand, and to God-fearing men and women, a prescribed, forecasted, 26 million Protestants and 4 million Catholics, 30 million. My hand remains extended to that demographic to say, we're taking our country back. It will be in the name of God. We will do this for his glory, and we will reinstate Christianity, the one true faith, back within the heart of government. And that hand remains extended until it is slapped away so many times. I will hold that community to a higher standard, and my question will become, if you're not joining and therefore not standing, because you have to join, then you stand, you go through vetting. If not, why not? Something utterly awful and unholy has happened to many, as I'm sure you're aware, many Christians in Britain as a result of cowardice, as a result of watering down, diluting. And I will make one more point. Those who always turn around and point the finger at the head of clergy, at the head of ministry, at the priests, at the vicars. Yes, we have been institutionally, across the board, failed. When we say our institutions have been captured, we mean it. It is down, and I quote, to the laity to right this wrong. It is not down to any one man, bishop, cardinal, priest. It is down to the laity. There is no more excuses to the Christian community in Britain. My hand remains extended.
Yeah, and that's what this podcast is for. It's about having a platform to stand up for those who have been a victim of injustice. And I feel as though those who do stand up for those who are victim of injustice, for example, someone like Tommy Robinson, their freedom of speech is being taken away. Like, for instance, Tommy Robinson, he's currently in solitary confinement for releasing a documentary. When he comes out, he has a terrorism charge waiting for him. Not only that, you had people who were arrested for Facebook posts, but yet just in Lewisham, you had a man waving around a knife, and the police arrested them in 17 hours. So when I look at what's going on in Britain, the only thing I can think to myself is that there is a push for anti-whiteness and white hate, kind of like what they did to black men in the 80s, I believe. They kind of gave this image of thugs and gangsters. They're doing the same thing with white men and trying to give them this image of like far right neo-Nazis. What's your thoughts on that?
So in terms of the Tommy Robinson situation, the way that Tommy Robinson's being treated is utterly awful. He is a political prisoner. It is disgusting. Under a UKIP government, he would be knighted for the journalistic work he's done and his activism work he's done to expose the Pakistani grooming gangs and other works as well. You mentioned a anti-white campaign. I mentioned about an anti-Christian, anti-patriarch, anti-masculinity campaign. But it is true. The Great Replacement theory and the anti-white campaign go hand in hand. So a lot of people will talk to you about the stats. They'll say in X number of years, Britain's indigenous will be X number of the population. The problem is that we're so far gone, the numbers model, which I also call the outrage model, because the statisticians behind the numbers model know that it incites and induces outrage, which should lead to motivation and action, but it doesn't. It just leads to further outrage, which is something we're trying to correct at UKIP. Got to act. Is it real? The Great Replacement? Absolutely, it's real. it's not something that I can comment on more, because it's going to, as long as they keep mass uncontrolled immigration funneling through, this outbreeding, or the great replacement theory, this is going to keep happening.
Yeah.
So it's more important for me to talk about the remigration policy at UKIP. We distinguish between illegal immigration, legal immigration, and remigration. So remigration is where we send unintegrated migrant communities who refuse to learn English, who refuse to assimilate, who refuse to decree and declare that this is a Christian land, who subscribe to terrorist organizations, who are here to spread the caliphate, who are here to subvert Christianity and British culture. There's a whole list of things. Those people we're sending home. And if we can't send them home, we're sending them somewhere else, or they'll remain detained. So that's that in 30-second format, that's what remigration looks and sounds like. In terms of your question, which is harder to answer, about the anti-white campaign, at UKIP we stand against racism and bigotry. That includes racism to white people.
Yeah.
That includes racism to white people.
Yeah.
There is a globalist, communist-inspired agenda to denigrate the nuclear family, patriarch, Christianity, masculinity, and those of white skin. Yeah, and it's truly, truly vile and awful. And I suppose your question's so important because it's not really an opinion. I can state the facts, but it's deeper than that. Let's look at the weaponization of race.
Yeah.
I mean, that is as unholy and as vile as it gets. Sam Kerr, who's some Australian football player.
Spoken to the...
You guys are stupid and white. Honestly, you guys are stupid and white.
Okay.
I'm looking you in the eyes.
Why are you
I'm
bringing
looking you in the
racism?
eyes. Like,
So,
I'm stupid. I'm over this. This is the world problem. Wait on the call. Wait on the call. Wait on the f***ing call.
all right. I'll go over at the moment then at 317. You're under arrest for criminal damage because there's an allegation that you've smashed that taxi window. You're also under arrest for racially aggravated public order for the comments that you've said.
Has behaved clearly appallingly in the back of a taxi with her girlfriend. That's without talking about the stats of domestic violence in lesbian relationships, which is utterly, utterly devastating. She's kicked the window through, or one of them has. They've been sick. This is the story anyway. The taxi driver has said, this is unacceptable. The police have been called. And upon being called, and we've seen the video, she's clearly intoxicated, she starts ranting. You can call it racist, or you can call it, well, she called him white, the police officer, so what? I mean, I'm not a snowflake. But said, look, you're criticising him for his whiteness. Can you imagine if it had been a black cop?
The world would stop.
Can you imagine statues being torn down, BLM graffiti everywhere, headline news, worldwide notoriety about the systemic racism and the white privilege? Now, this Sam Kerr individual, she said that it's in the content, or in a statement at court. She felt like the police officer was using his privilege. So we've got the notion of systemic racism, we've got the notion of white guilt, we've got the notion of critical race theory, you got the notion of I forget what the other one's called now, but it all links to the weaponization of race. So you've taken anything non-white in Britain and you've legitimately, albeit disgustingly, you've legitimately, with no shots fired, weaponized every single one of those, apart from the good people that see through it. You see through the nature of it. That can't be undone. And then, this is a really long answer, but if I can do another point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, you've got the Islamists jumping off the back of that and the coattails to conflate race with religion.
Yeah.
So if you go onto Instagram, and for your viewers, go onto muslim.daily. And there's also a doctor now, I can't pronounce his surname, but I have the recording of it. The man who was burning a Quran outside the Turkish embassy the other day, I'm sure we've all seen.
You saw the footage.
A guy's come out with a knife.
Why do you even have a knife?
So many questions. Why do you have a knife? Why are you doing that? Will he get let off? Probably. He might get a year inside. You can't be serious. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's so much to unpack. So go in the comments on muslim.daily. this video, by the time this airs, this video will be quite far down, but you'll find it because it's clearly the scene outside the Turkish embassy, whatever. Go into the comments. Go into the comments. They are praising what they call Allah. They're praising the Turk. And then they start talking about the racism that we have to suffer is unbearable. Now, here's where it gets really...
Islamophobia we have to offer is too much, but...
My answer's too long, but again, I have many Muslim friends. We all do.
Yeah.
Former friends now, because obviously the truth has come out, and they don't like the fact that it's being called out, which is really problematic for me. But life moves on. I've noticed in the last few years, banked off of the nonsense we were speaking about a minute ago about the weaponization of race, Islam's jumped on it.
They have.
So it's racist.
Yeah.
How dare you burn the Quran? That's racist. How dare you be Islamophobic? That's racist.
How dare you girls being groomed and...
It's racist. How dare you say that we're murdering in the name of jihad? That's racist. So we thought we had it bad under BLM in circa 20. So not only are white people demonized, and we now are experiencing this bizarre form of racism, but you've also got it now being used as a defense mechanism to get themselves out of quite literally murder.
Literally, it's insane. And what's so crazy is that growing up in school, things like DEI, inclusivity, multiculturalism, it was kind of... It made it look so juicy, nice, and oh my gosh, this is the way to go. But now I'm realizing that all of these things are not working. So as the UKIP leader, I want to ask you, DEI, inclusivity, multiculturalism, is that something you're going to push in your, well, now you are the UKIP leader, but do you think it's working?
So DEI isn't working. Multiculturalism is complicated, so I'd like to explain it for your audience. DEI under a UKIP government would be scrapped. So what do we mean when we say scrapped, or laws to be repealed, or laws to be created? When we say scrapped, we mean there would be no more funding from the government, from the taxpayer, i.e. the customer's pot. There would be no more spending. Now, lately in America, we've got USAID, and then we've got the Britain version over here. So you've got all these different statisticians and researchers finally fact-finding about Serco and the amount of money that Serco is given to, we call it the third sector, Quangos. Now, most people know about all this. So again, it's back to the numbers model. The amount of money we spend on DEI policy.
It's ridiculous.
So again, I can do the numbers model, but there's no point. We now, in 2020, different, 2021, 2025, we know. We get it. Hundreds and hundreds of millions. Here's one. 50,000 got sent to a Bangladeshi university to do a study on shrimp genealogy or something like that. Feel free to fact check, but it was shrimp genealogy or something like that. 50 grand. We're taking our country back. We're done. You know, it's naughty step time for those who are in Parliament. There's no more mercy, diplomacy, and surrender. So we know that DEI is a scam. What it does is it wastes the customer's money, taxpayer money, and it serves as a tool to indoctrinate our 3-year-olds to our GCSE level, to our A level, to our young adults on university colleges, for men to become effeminate, emasculated, useless, slack-jawed, lily-livered cowards who despise masculinity and refuse to grow up and step up. It weaponizes females and the mind of the female against men, against family, to pursue godless, lifelong careers sitting in cages working for corporates that despise them. We know that DEI can be unpacked in such a way to say that it is also incredibly discriminatory, that it is not based on meritocracy, that it is totally fascistic and totalitarian in many ways. That there will be books written on this, if not already. So under a UKIP government, it is gone, scrapped, no more. We hire and fire based on merit.
What you can do, you know. Sorry to stop you there, but I was even having a conversation and he was telling me that the reason why DEI is so stupid is because it doesn't push people to be their best. Back in the day, if you were successful, if you was idolized, it's because you did the hard work. Someone, for example, like Michael Jackson, he's Michael Jackson because he did the hard work. Beyonce is Beyonce because she used to jog and sing at the same time. But when we're telling people, I'm just going to pick you because you're black, what's that supposed to do? And it just builds this victim mentality within themselves, telling them that they're incompetent. No, you are competent. You just need to work hard. Sorry to stop you, but continue.
Not at all. No, it's fascinating. So I'll loop back, but I'll branch in that. So the professionalization, the normalization of victimization within the individual, just as satanic as the weaponization of race.
Yeah.
We don't want our young men being victims. Oh, there's nothing worse. You've seen it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, grow up.
Yeah.
That's pathetic. How dare you? Roof over your head, food in your belly. You crack on, son.
Exactly.
The weaponization of victimization. There's an awful lot of words being floated, but there you go for your audience. That it's important that everyone has the mindset when they're asked about DEI, multiculturalism, far left totalitarian propaganda. To put you on the back foot. It links to every chat we've had so far. People need to be aware to the plan. So DEI, is it racist? Highly. Is it fascistic? Completely. Is it fair? Utterly no. So totally scrapped. You asked about multiculturalism. Let's import 50,000 people from, I don't know, the Middle East. 50,000 people. 10,000 of them are murderers, rapists, villains, pedophiles, whether they've got form or not. Do we import the 50,000 people?
No, we don't.
Because you've got common sense and a brain. Absolutely not.
And we're not saying this to be racist, by the way. We're saying this because these things are normalized in their ideology. If you say that, it's a problem.
Multiculturalism from Windrush. I'd say that largely it was a success. Indo-European, largely a success. You can't get a DIY tradesman out to your house now for handyman jobs. You can't, because the Polish have gone home. They don't want to be here anymore.
No.
You can't get all the DIY guys. Any of you, I challenge you, try and get a DIY guy out to your house because the job is too problematic, or because you'll mess it up and it'll make it worse. They're all the guys that still exist in that field, regardless of the trade, they're all taking the big contracts. 350, 200, 400 a day. They're not interested in doing odd jobs. I.e. that goes above the role of husband or brother or whatever, because it's just too complicated. Multiculturalism, in essence, works depending on who you are importing. But by definition, it wouldn't be multicultural, because I see culture and faith as the same thing. So the conversation about multiculturalism is incredibly interesting. Has it worked? No. Is it a massive failing? Yes. And of course, people can point to good parts, but you've always got to go back. If you import 50,000 people, and even 50 of them, I said 5,000 or whatever I said, even if 50 people were going to go on to commit the most heinous of crimes, you still wouldn't import the 50,000, because we want to be encouraging Britons to have children. Why do we even have immigration? UKIP's going to close the borders. We're going to end immigration. So the subject of multiculturalism is long, it's expansive, it's complicated. I'm aware of where it has worked. When you import similar or same cultures and or faiths, and or you import those willing to assimilate and speak English, of course. But we have been betrayed by the notion. The far left are now calling out assimilation as a far right propaganda tool. It's nonsense. We extend the hand to the idea that it can work and has worked, but we remember now, in terms of policy, that it hasn't worked. Britain is full. We need to be encouraging British people to be having children and families. We're sending home the suspected 3 to 5 million illegal invaders, and we're beginning the process of remigration, because there's between 5, 10, 15 million people who don't deserve to be here. And that's based on public sector spending, public sector services, etc. It is a great shame that someone says multiculturalism's failed. The notion that you can mix cultures and that they'll work alongside each other, it's just not plausible. So if someone converts and learns to speak English, then I'm pulled the other direction. I think to myself, well, do they decree and declare this as a Christian land? Can they speak English? Are they themselves British? And then the question becomes, well, what about identity? I hope you don't mind me expanding on this point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Then it becomes about identity. Well, what is our shared identity then? If it's not in skin color, they'll say. And then I come along and say, well, surely it's in Christ. Surely it's in our faith, because culture and faith are one and the same thing. So can it work? well, multiculturalism definitely cannot work. It can work in the short term potentially, but not in the long term. Can assimilation work? Well, potentially, depending on who's trying to assimilate. Can integration work? Question mark. Well, we've had our shot, we're closing the borders, and we're sending them home, those who are here to subvert British culture and values. It's a very sad state of affairs, but that's the way that it's turned out.
Now, I always say we shouldn't be striving for multiculturalism. What we should be striving for is unity. Like, for example, if you look at the UAE, you have to speak Arabic, you have to respect their modesty, you have to respect the Quran, you have to respect their religion, and that's why the UAE is thriving. But here in the UK, we're just accepting any and everything, and it's just not working. You said you do have plans, correct me if I'm wrong, to mass deport for UKIP. Can you just tell me, how exactly are you going to execute that plan? Because I work with immigrants, and 9 out of 10 of them, they're not serious. You can just tell they're here abusing the government, the system. But there are immigrants, like, for example, yesterday, I sat down with an immigrant, and you can tell that this person was shell-shocked. Like, if I just lifted my finger, he would flinch like this. You can tell he's been through trauma. So, and another example would be my dad. My dad came into this country from Congo. He assimilated, he contributed. If England is playing football, he's right there supporting. If there's an event with the royal family, he's there supporting. So how are you going to be able to detect which people have a right to stay and which people don't have a right to stay? If you can just break down
Certainly.
the line.
So let's go back to what I said a minute ago. Illegal immigration is different to legal immigration, is different to remigration. So in terms of illegal immigration, we've got a suspected 100,000 in our taxpayer-funded hotels. So what I'll do is I'll itemize these and I'll tell you the how with them rather than having to go back.
Yeah.
So we already know where they are, correct? Detained and deported, because they're in the hotels.
Yeah.
Detained and deported. That's that. There's a suspected it's going to be a bit like that now. There's a suspected 1.2 million illegal invaders on our land. So you got the hotel brigade, then you got the 1.2 million. Well, we know where they are. They're in the car washes, they're in the nail salons, they're in the Deliveroo jobs, they're on scooters, blacked out, carrying knives around London. They are being hidden by friends. I know too much about how it works. By friends of friends who know someone who knows someone, and they'll put them in the wardrobe. Or so, not that immigration enforcement's ever going to come round, but I already know that these people harbour these people. So UKIP will offer a £500 reward to anyone who grasses these people up, so that we can send law enforcement round or immigration. You know, a lot of people are going quite a lot of money out of this. You know, they're going to be reluctant to put their details into the system then, because obviously they're harbouring. But that's a conversation that we'll have. All levity aside, we'll have that conversation slightly further downstream. So 100k in hotels, we know where they are, gone. 1.2 million. We all know that it's more than 1.2 million. Let's say, God forbid, it's 2 million. I don't believe it's greater than that, but let's just say it is. We do know where. Question becomes, well, where are they then? Because they're not in the hotels. We do know where. We know the jobs they're working in, and we're going to get people to confess and say where they are in exchange for a reward. So that's your illegal immigration. Let's look at legal immigration when we talk about mass deportations. 39,000 Islamists on MI5's terror watch list. There are 45,000 on MI5's terror watch list. 39,000 are Islamists.
Why are they not doing anything about it?
It's a very good question. Deported, 39,000 deported. 12,000, 11,000 foreign nationals in our jail, deported. Back to wherever they came from. They're foreigners in our jail.
What do you say to the people that say that is way too harsh? Give them a chance.
I don't care. No. So you've got the hotel brigade. You've got the hotel brigade. You've got the illegal invader brigade in wider society, who have gone onto the radar. It's interesting. Let's go back. So we've got the 100,000 in hotels, but we know that there's 1.2 million illegal invaders on our land. Well, why would you go into a hotel? It's 10 times more than that have just gone into Britain. They're being harboured by people here. And it's not by the indigenous. We all know who it's by. 90% of immigration, illegal immigration, is from Muslim countries. Yeah, they're not coming from Germany. They're not coming from China. They're not coming from Canada. They're not coming from Denmark. They're coming from the Middle East. The government know about the gangs. The gangs are the dealers. The people are the end product, or the customer, the buyer, and they're all in cahoots. Yeah, the idea that you can't shut those paths. Do you know how far it is from the Middle East to France? Have you tried walking it?
I've always been curious about why specifically the Middle East.
It's nonsense. So we live in 2025. Now, I've not been to Afghanistan yet. I've not been to a lot of places in the Middle East. Why don't they jump on a Ryanair flight for 80 quid? Because what happens when you land at the airport? Border control. Would you be allowed in without a passport? Right, but you are allowed in if you come in on a small boat because you're seeking asylum because of this thing called water and a channel.
Okay.
So why don't they get on a flight from Ryanair? So, for example, you may have toured the Middle East. I haven't really. Let's say they're coming from Syria. You know where Syria is on the map, like your audience will do. So let's walk through it, right? From Syria to France, how do you make that journey? How do you do that? I've never done that. Do you drive? Do you walk it? Do you hitchhike? You've got all these routes that are laid out for you to get to France, which is not a war-torn country. So you can get in that dinghy and claim asylum whilst you are here. The government, the liberal establishment, both red and blue, know it. The gangs know it. The roots know it. Those people along the way. That's a hell of an organisation. That's a serious infrastructure.
No, I've seen the footage. It's organised. It's planned out. They get phones on the shores of the beach. The boats, they're all professional. They all look the same. So
you might as well have people in high vises with flares, like, party organisers, with the flag, and they do the tours around London type of thing, and come this way. So let me get this straight. We got MI5, can't do anything about it. We got the Met Police, can't do anything about it. 50 to 100,000 foot soldiers in the British Army, can't do anything about it. Can't reason with France, can't reason with Germany, can't reason with these countries that are sending them here. We're paralysed to do anything. Then when they get here, they're given everything. Costs 8 million quid a day, 1.2 billion a year to house these people in the hotels. But the wider point about how much we spend on out of work migrants is 21 billion. So let me get this straight. There's nothing that we can do to sanction. It's nonsense. Your question was, is the government in on it? No matter how you break this down, why don't those people get on a Ryanair flight? Why don't they get into Turkey? Travel from Syria to Turkey. That's not hard. All right, fine, go to Lebanon. Easy. Literally, you probably could walk it, you wouldn't want to. Why don't you get a Ryanair flight from Lebanon? Because when you get to border control, you will be denied access into Britain. This is an illegal, into your very important point, this is an illegal invasion.
Yeah. And when I hear this information, I hear the facts and the figures and the money that's being spent, I actually think it's offensive to the actual immigrants like my parents who came here legally. My dad had to wait 4 years to come into this country. He worked from a cleaner all the way up to a doctor. And yet these people come in just like that on a boat, on a dinghy. They just say, I'm seeking asylum, and they get all the benefits in the world. It's unfair to everybody, regardless of if you're white. But I do have a question. What about the people who are generally seeking refuge, like they've escaped the war, like the man that I explained to you I sat down with on Friday? How would you be able to detect them, and would you keep them in the country?
No, we're closing the borders.
Oh.
No refugees. The borders are getting closed.
So not even someone who's escaping a war, has just come from a terrorist country, they're not allowed?
No, they're the neighbouring country. Let's use Kuwait. They can go to Saudi Arabia. Let's use UAE. They can go to Saudi Arabia. Let's use Palestine. They can go to Egypt. The thought that we're taking in Palestinian refugees and Egypt and Saudi are saying no, I could spit.
Really?
The borders are getting shut.
Wow.
We have been far too kind and far too tolerant for far too long. We're going to have, once we stop the rot and scrap the DEI and stop spending money on it, on funding our own destruction. We've been through an awful lot in this really important interview. Once there's going to be so much money, we're going to put Christianity back into the heart of government, and we're going to be telling our grassroots, our families, those who want to start a family, you're going to start having kids and you'll be rewarded for doing so.
Yeah. Can I also ask you, obviously we've had so many government parties come and say they're going to do exactly what you've done, and after that they kind of backtracked. How can we trust you?
So the rent is due every day on trust, loyalty and respect.
Wow.
That's how I was raised, and that's how I carry myself as a man. The rent is due every day on trust, loyalty and respect. The policies are what's important. I'm not important. The party is what's important. The policies are what's important. judge every single day. The magnitude of which we are discussing, the future of Britain, prosperity and happiness wise, but justice to be delivered to the British people requires the magnitude of the likes of which we're discussing here. Extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. Judge me every single day. On policies, on action and direction, you will not see cowardice. You will not see flip-flopping. You will see unwavering courage with the shield of faith and the armor of God.
Yeah.
Give me that chance.
Yeah. You also said that reform is controlled opposition. How certain are you about it?
Certainly, yeah. Fantastic question. Obviously, I cannot be, your question is how certain can I be? Well, I believe they are. So that's my answer. I believe they are. Can I prove it? Well, if it walks like a duck, acts like a duck, and goes quack, it's a duck. So my knowledge of the Conservative Party is too in-depth, and Labour, but mainly of the Tories, to know that in a G7 nuclearized country, you don't give up the keys to power. It doesn't happen. You do not give up the keys to power. You see something on the horizon and you think, how can we control that? Whether the control is to be morphed, whether it's to be amalgamated, that is yet to be seen. But for the mindset, that's the view that you need to, that's the lens you need to view this through. Why would an establishment like the Tories that's been going for 200 years give up keys to power in a first past the post liberal democracy, whatever you want to call it? So let's answer the question by first asking that question. You wouldn't. So you're going to see opposition. You're going to see rising stars coming through. So you're going to bend over. You're just going to take that. Of course you're not. You're going to look to control it. If you can't stop it, this is the key point. If you can't stop it, you're going to try and control it. So Nigel flip-flops, red flag. Nigel brings in Mohammed Youssef, Islamic multi-millionaire chairman, denounces Tommy Robinson, says nothing about Christianity, takes out in the implementation of Youssef, takes out Ben Habib because of the rejig. Now, your question is, are they controlled opposition? You need to, there's a big list. Tommy's an important one there. Why would you do all these things? What's the point? What's the purpose? No democratization within the party, but that's all they talk about, to the point where people are leaving en masse now. The 200,000 membership list, that's not people that have joined Reform who never voted before. Go back to that 40% that don't vote. They're Tories. These are Conservative members. They want the Tory vote. They want the Conservative, liberal, secular, godless, broad church vote. Does it make sense now? Yeah. This is not my opinion. I believe, you could ask, well, what about any rising star that was coming into the establishment? Then they'd become controlled opposition. Yeah, I'm sure they would be targeted to become controlled opposition. The question would become, would they submit? I believe Reform and Nigel have.
Do you think that Christianity and politics should mix?
100%. Oh, 100%. For decades, our priests, vicars, reverends, whatever you want, cardinals, bishops, higher uppers, ordained ministries, has been frowned upon over and again. And in common parley, it's frowned upon. All politics and religion. The dinner table, the classic dinner table, where it goes nuclear, politics and religion. The boomer conservative idea was to never mix them. Now, I remember that an awful lot. We've been lied to. It is up for the laity to make it their sole focus to be studied, versed, and edified in both politics and religion. And that is a key mechanism with regards to how we're going to take our country back. And don't expect priests or vicars or bishops to lead the charge here, by the way, because they know they'll get sanctioned from the uppers because it's all been captured, give or take an inch. It's down to the laity. Politics and religion is everything. It's literally everything. But as someone who studies both fields and lives and breathes both fields, I would say that. But I'm also not wrong. Politics and religion, there is quite, was it Aquinas or more? I'm not sure who said that there is nothing else. I forget the quote, but it is all just politics and religion. Every one of us is going to have to become a political activist to take our country back. Politics and religion do mix. They haven't mixed because people haven't had the guts to try it. UKIP is doing precisely that, only we're not trying, we're doing.
What does Christ mean to you?
I like it. Good question. Well, why not? He's my Lord and Saviour. I kneel before him. I submit to him. He's my God. He is our God as Christians. He means to me bravery. He means bravery, and he means courage. He means hope, and he means faith, and he means charity, and he forms the basis of my waking up and of my going to bed, and every single thing that I do. Every single thing I do, all power, love, worship, and respect to Christ our Lord. He means everything to me. I'm doing this, true, but I'm merely an instrument. I'm merely an instrument of God, and I am so fortunate, lucky, and blessed to have been selected to do this. Deo gratias.
Well, I'm so glad I asked you that question, because at the beginning I asked you, what does Nick TENCONI fear? And I can see from the emotionalness that it's Jesus Christ. So just to wrap up this interview, if there's one last thing that you can say to Gen Z in this camera, what would it be?
To Gen Zs and to Gen Alphas and to millennials as well, our grassroots, our youth. If you aren't joined to UKIP, you don't have a say in UKIP. We are democratized at UKIP. If you are not joined, you don't have a say. You also can't stand to be a candidate. You can't apply to be vetted. We're putting forward 650 candidates. If you want your country back, if enough truly is enough, then if you are not becoming or declaring to become a political activist in 2025, we're not going to take our country back. You have to be subscribed to a political party. So if you've never voted before, if you've never been registered to vote before, you need to go online today. It will change your life forever. Understand how it works. There are so many tutorials about what it means to get registered to vote. You must be registered to vote. Once you've done that, you also, that's with the council, go on to ukip.org. You'll see how easy it is. £30 a year. It's the best investment and the best return on investment you'll ever get from any of your investments ever. And 25 for those students, and under 25 is £25, and it's 10 for veterans. Join the political party, be registered to vote, and then put your name forward to stand as a community leader in your area in a first past the post system. If you're not standing to take your country back, and we're not standing 650 candidates, you're not getting your country back. That is the long, short, good, right, wrong, bad, ugly. If you're not acting, you're not getting your country back.
Nick TENCONI, thank you so much. We appreciate everything that you do for this country. We admire your passion, your devotion, and your radicalism. That was great.
Well,
That was great.